So welcome everyone. So my name is Kurzke. I am a developer advocate with Google, and I'm representing Google TV, the developer program for Google TV. In the last session, we've already seen there is a lot of people here in the audience who are Android developers, and so I'm getting a little bit technical as well. But I want to just give you the overall overview of what you can do with Google TV. If you want to find me on the internet, you can find me on Google Plus or on Twitter. Let's see. So the first thing I want to... Okay. So the first thing I want to talk about is why would you develop for television? And I want to contrast a little bit to the last presentation from Uverse. So this is really writing applications that run on your set-top box, so it's not on your companion device or on your mobile device. So let's see, in the US, we actually have more TVs per household than we have people on average. So there's about 2.5 people in each household, and they have 2.8 televisions. And amazingly enough, people actually find 5 hours a day to watch television. There must be somebody must be watching my 4.5 hours every day. The other thing to note is that at least in 2010, over 20% of all TVs were sold with some form of internet connectivity. And actually, if you walk around the show floor this time around, there is virtually every manufacturer has some form of a smart television. And the trend is clearly going to more and more connectivity in your television and having more rich content on your TV. We expect that by 2014, which is almost right around the corner now, the smart TV sales will reach about 120 million or over 120 million. So there is a huge market for televisions in the households that you as a developer can target. So in summary, why you would develop for TV is a lot of people watch a lot of television, and the platforms are getting smarter. So I see the televisions are about maybe 10 years behind where the phones were. In the beginning, people were making phone calls. Nobody could imagine something like Angry Birds. When you saw somebody in the 90s, they're like, oh, I'm perfectly happy with my cell phone. I can call all my friends. I don't need anything more. So we believe that we can really help take television to the next level. And we should make better, as developers, we should find the next killer apps. So as a developer, you got to ask yourself, why be on television, or what do you want to do on television? And we think, especially being here in Vegas, entertainment is really where the money is. So as a developer, try to create apps that are engaging for television, try to bring entertainment to your audience. Yes, there's going to be some people who want to see the latest stock tickers while they're watching a soap opera. But when we look at the early stats that we have for applications that are really successful on television, people, when they come home, they just want to kick back, they want to be entertained, they don't want to read paragraphs and paragraphs of text on the screen. So the opportunity again is create an app that's really the center of the living room, the center of the family. And I think there's two distinct opportunities. On the one hand, we can focus on making the existing TV watching time more entertaining, more enjoyable. And as a developer, you can augment maybe what people want to do already. But then there is 19 hours a day that people are not watching TV. And there is a big screen sitting in the living room, potentially idle. So if you can, as a developer, if you can come up with an idea to fill those other 19 hours, and that can be things like streaming video. When I have a party at my house, I put on streaming audio. I don't really need any other stereo anymore. The TV is already connected to the best speakers in the house, and I have a bunch of apps that just basically connect to my, say, Pandora music, and they just download and stream. So I think there's really the biggest opportunity that I see is finding new ways for people to use the TV. Just to be clear, we don't really expect to change people's behavior. People will still watch television. They will come home, they will watch a 3-hour movie, and while they watch this movie, they really don't want to know what their friends are doing for dinner or something. So having like your social network status stuff basically show up on the screen while you're watching a movie is not necessarily a good thing. So When we develop apps, we basically picture our user as somebody who is relaxed, laid back, with a remote control in the hand, and they interact with the TV. So now that we know why we want to develop for television, let's see how we do this. So from a developer's point of view, Google TV is basically, it's a big Chrome browser on a big screen, and it's an Android platform. I just want to briefly talk about HTML. I know there is a lot of people in the world who write HTML5 apps, and I think there is still a good opportunity. And if you look around the show floor, virtually everyone today is having a web browser on their TV. And I think it's a legitimate platform for developers to create content across a wide range of TV devices. So how do you create an optimized web experience? So just putting a website on a large screen is certainly not an optimized web experience. So even though Google TV can access the internet, it has a full Chrome browser, you can go to virtually any website and it will work, but it's not a great experience that somebody sits back and says, oh my God, the next 2 hours I want to surf the web on this thing. So don't do that. What we have done, for example, so this is our YouTube application or YouTube website. So if you go to YouTube/leanback, you can see what we think is a good YouTube experience for a browser in the living room. And it's very visual. It plays video. When you go to the site, it just starts randomly playing. You can go through a carousel of related videos. It's much more user-friendly, and you don't have to use a mouse to navigate. You can actually use your keyboard, your up, down, left, right keys. So this is just one example where you can use HTML, and I've seen other HTML apps where I must say I'm actually pretty impressed what guys can pull out of a hat with HTML nowadays, and I think WebGL and all this stuff is really going to make it even more interactive. So if you are a web developer and you want to do something for Google TV, we have a thing that we call like our gallery or our highlighted websites. You can check it out at gtv-gallery.appspot.com or just let us know. Basically find us online, either on the forums or on Google+. If we see your website and we think it's really something we want to highlight, we can add it to the gallery here. But for this talk, I really want to focus on Android developers, and it's really big on Google TV. So the way we see Google TV, we chose Android as the core platform, so the entire user experience of Google TV is implemented in Android, or it's an Android app. So when you actually go around the show floor and you see Google TV and you interact with it, the entire user interface is Android. And the cool thing about Android is all the stuff you see, it's using the same APIs that are available to you. So your application can be a first-class citizen. It's not like in the old days where you run your TV application and then you go off somewhere to the side, you launch an app, you close an app, and then you go back to the TV experience. The whole thing about Android is it's really a deep integration. You have home screen widgets, you have all those things. So I'll talk a little bit more about that just in a second. So basically, as a developer, if you choose to develop for Google TV, you find a lot of things that you're already familiar with. So the deep integration with the system, it's a familiar programming language, and most of you already are Android developers. And you have all the really powerful Android APIs. So we do support OpenGL. The next version, it's actually going to be hardware accelerated. So whatever you see out on the floor here, most of the people are actually using OpenGL for the user interface. We have a bunch of OpenGL apps on the platform. We have RenderScript, media players. We do hardware accelerated H.264 decoding. So if you want to play back any video, we can do full Blu-ray quality up to 60 megabits playback. So with this, I also want to tell you it's not just a big Android app. So we have seen people who have just taken plain Android, put it on a box, and make it really big. And it's not necessarily that easy. So the biggest change that I see for developers is the user interface. So you probably have already written an app for a tablet. You've noticed that just taking a phone app and putting it on a tablet is not necessarily always ideal. It works sometimes for some apps. For others, we have things like UI fragments now in Android. They help you to rearrange your user interface. You can still share the same code base, but it makes it easier to lay out on a large screen. And you also have more optimized media codecs. Playing back a 300, let's say a 320 by 240 video on a TV is really, really painful. Playing back a 480 by something video is still pretty bad. So you maybe want to re-encode some of your media or also your screen assets. So make sure you support high resolution screen assets. One word about how to lay out an application. The way I see the world is you have a phone. It has typically like a 4-inch screen. There's a certain amount of information you can put on it. People put up with a lot of text on a phone. Tablets are really, I think you can display most information on a tablet. It's very close. People have it about a foot away from them when they read. It's a comfortable reading distance. It's a 10-inch screen. So people pack a ton of information on there, like all your email inbox and so on. The television, it's even bigger than a tablet, but people, keep in mind, people sit far away. So you as a developer may actually be sitting right in front of your TV, and it might be tempting to use a 10-point font and put like 5 paragraphs of text on there. But your users will sit 10 feet away from it, and if you watch professional like television, something like Bloomberg channel, those guys don't put a lot of text on there. There's a few words, there's maybe a paragraph, a couple words in a paragraph. Don't overload the user with information. The easiest way to scare somebody in the living room is putting a lot of text on the screen. They're like, it's too complicated, I don't want to deal with this now. I'll watch Classy Fireplace again. So here's some examples of user interface design. So really focus on a vital part of your application. I think that's really true for every app design, is pick 1 or 2 problems that you want to solve with your app and do it efficiently. Group the content together. I'm not a big fan of having a lot of stuff on the screen at the same time. It's much better to basically do a progressive disclosure where you go through the user flow and you just open up new screens. Really keep it clean, keep it simple. Don't overload the user with useless details. If they really want to know more about it, most people today have a tablet or a laptop in their living room. They'll go to your website, they'll find more detail. In terms of just craft, what we do as Android designers and Android developers, really use 9-patch images. As the screens get bigger, and I'll have graphics on this later, but the memory consumption really goes up very steep. So if you have static images, you have buttons, you have a pre-rendered Photoshop image of this nice little button with a reflection and some text on it, and now you stretch it to a TV screen, chances are it looks really crappy. So teach your designers about 9 patches, use 9 patches. And lastly, really make sure you have a UI designer. People have incredibly high standards of UI design when it comes to television. People put up with a lot of simple, easy crap, I want to say, on a mobile app. I think the requirements for polish on a TV are much higher, simply because people have been used to watching high gloss stuff when they watch the news and they see all the 3D effects and everything. So wowing a user with really high polish is really important. And lastly, when I show this, I usually point at it and say, this is exactly what you don't want to do actually on a TV app. You don't want to overload the user with stuff. So keep it clean, keep it simple. The other thing is, we really, besides the nice fancy effects, we really encourage you to have a dark background, bold fonts, short lines, and increase the line spacing. This would be approximately the amount of information you should have on a TV screen where you don't scare your users. And the dark background is one thing where people like to have white backgrounds on their tablet, makes it easier to read. A white background on a 60-inch screen lights up your living room. You don't really want to do that. If you actually want to have more information about this, you can check out our developers.google.com/TV, or you can Google us. And we have also a UI design guideline and so on. So I'm just going to go through a couple of the highlights, not so much on a code level, but more on a conceptual level, things to keep in mind. As I said earlier, the memory consumption is a real concern. We have seen a lot of developers struggle with it. If you go from, say, a phone application to a TV application, a full screen background image suddenly goes from somewhere in the range of 1 megabyte to somewhere in the range of like 8 to 10 megabytes. If you have a background image and then you scale it, or you have transparent layers, you're putting a lot of load on the CPU. That's the fastest way to slow down your application, is having full screen images and trying to scale them at runtime. It's not a good experience. So the other thing to keep in mind is TVs don't have a touch screen. We have worked long and hard to invent remote controls. When I was a little child, it was usually my job to get off the couch and walk up to the TV and change channels. I'm really happy we can sit down and have a remote control now. So touch screens, no. Also, we're trying to figure out right now how to interact with televisions. There's different approaches. There is the Kinect approach, where you stand up and you do a little workout to control your TV. What we think most people will use is just a 4-way up, down, left, right, and a select. Android already supports this. There is focus management and so on, but most developers never test it, because if I have a UI like this on a touchpad, people just use their fingers and they touch whatever they want. If I'm on a television, they have to navigate through this with an up, down, left, right. So keep in mind, test it. Lay your stuff out so that it's easily accessible, and try it out. So here is like some interesting pop quiz. Like, say you have the focus, the highlight focus is on a cell here. The user presses the down key. Question is, what's going to happen next? And there's a lot of possible things. The focus could go down to the next cell. That's most likely what the user was expecting. But it could also be that the focus actually goes down to the cell all the way on the left, because when Android looks at the layout, well, that's the next one down. Or it could go to the next row in the beginning, because maybe that's a UI element, and so on. So Android does some focus handling. It tries to figure out what the best way is. Most of the times, or sometimes when you have a complex layout, that doesn't work. So we encourage you to manually, first of all, test it. And then in Android, there is, in the layout files, in the layout XML files, you can have focus next, and so focus up, focus down elements. So make sure you explicitly declare where your focus moves around in your application. Speaking of focus, the other thing to do in Android is, since I think it was Froyo, we have something like a sound manager, and there's audio focus. There is nothing more annoying than running your application, switching to live television, and the audio keeps going. People actually will call customer support because they can't figure out how to shut up the say, music player when they're watching live TV, and now suddenly music keeps playing. So as a developer, if you want to have a high-quality app, make sure you request sound focus so that the system knows to basically shut up everyone else, and to also respect audio focus. So there is APIs for that. It's the audio focus manager. You can do on audio focus change listener. You implement it, you do the right thing. The other APIs that you have is, no, we don't have a GPS. We don't have Google TV right now. It doesn't have any of the typical like accelerometers and stuff. But we actually know the location. When you set up your Google TV, it asks for your zip code. You can query the location, and you get basically a geolocation on a zip code level, or zip code granularity. You will need the course location permission in your manifest for that. The other thing we can do, which you can't on a phone, it's a little bit similar to what we've heard earlier on the Uverse presentation. You can actually right now get a list of available channels, and so this changes depending on what your packages you subscribe to, and what your service provider is, and so on. So as an app developer, you can just iterate through a content provider that gives you a list of channels with names and call signs and so on. Just want to highlight, this is the list of channels. This is not what's currently playing. So right now we don't have an API, and there are frequently questions about this, which would give you back the channel that is currently playing or the show that is currently playing. So this is a frequent request. We know about it. We're looking into it. Our engineering team is looking into it. Here's a couple of real-world examples on the UI. So this is an app I worked with that's preloaded on Google TV now. It's the Pandora application. And if you look at their mobile app, it already looks pretty suitable for television. And they just translated it pretty straightforward. Some of the things I want to highlight is they actually did support, on Google TV, we have media control keys for play, pause, rewind, forward. So they added the key codes for this, and the rest of the UI is pretty much easily translated. Another app we did was ce-ml-ces. We looked at the website, way too much information. We looked at their mobile app, not quite enough information, not visual enough. So when we worked with them, their designers came out with this layout here. And so they basically combined the video clips and the more visual information from their website with the layout or the more detailed portfolio information from their mobile app. And again, they were able to reuse a lot of their code from the mobile app that does all the server backend and so on. So that's a nice thing about Android. You can, if you want to, you can create one app that runs across all of your platforms. So I'm just going to breeze through this. You guys all know how to get the Android SDK. You can download it. You can set it up. You can integrate it with Eclipse. One thing I want to quickly highlight is when you download the SDK, you can select to download a Google TV add-on. This has an emulator, and the emulator right now only works on Linux host systems. So if you have a Mac or Windows desktop, we know you're missing it, but we're working on it. Okay, so if you want to get started developing, one of the easiest ways to do it, of course, is you just get a Google TV, you hook it up. All Google TVs you buy today have ADB enabled. You can connect to it. If you don't have a Google TV or you don't live in the US and you just want to get a quick feel of it, one of the closest approximations that I can come up with is basically use a Honeycomb tablet and pair a Bluetooth keyboard with it and use the keyboard for that. That works pretty well to test focus and so on. If you have a Linux workstation, use the emulator. You can test things like screen sizes, overscan, and so on. If you're looking for documentation, so, oops, there's another gratuitous Android animation. So you can go to developer.android.com, you all know about that. Or you can go to developers.google.com/TV. And we have both Android and web optimization tips there. We also have specifically for the designers in you, or you can give to your best friend who is doing your UI design. Ideally, you've hired a graphics designer, but there is a GTV Android patterns. So that's a write-up that one of our UI experts did who designed a lot of the Google TV UI. And he talks a little bit about best practices, how to do this from a design point of view. Now you're done writing your app, you want to distribute it. Android Market, we launched last fall. So Android Market is available on all Google TV devices. You want to get your app in here. It's the same market that you have for mobile. So if you know the process, you sign up for a market account, you upload it. Make sure your application only uses the features that are supported on Google TV. So as I said, it's the same market, but we filter out applications based on features. If you use anything other than this, you're out of luck. The key feature, so if you just upload your mobile app, it doesn't show up on Google TV. We assume that every app, unless it states otherwise, uses and requires touchscreen. If you want to show up on Google TV, first of all, you've tested your app that it works without a touchscreen. And you will confirm so by putting a tag in your manifest basically saying the feature Android hardware touchscreen is not required. Once you do that, you'll show up on Android Market. You already know that. If you do that, first of all, just to highlight it, if you say you don't require touchscreen, you still show up on touchscreen devices. So that way you show up on all devices. If you at runtime want to know if you run on a Google TV, you can check for the com.google.android.tv feature. If you only want to show up on Google TV, you require that feature. Simple. Just to make my life easier, run AAPT and dump the features and verify the features. I get at least an email every other week from somebody saying, oh my God, my app doesn't show up on Google TV. What am I doing wrong? And then I'm like, okay, just look at the features and compare them with what you can do. Yeah, test it. Make sure you have 16:9 screenshots, have a feature graphic, and let us know about it. Easiest way to let us know about it, tweet about it, go on Google+, come to our Hangouts. How do you make money? You can have a paid app, you can have in-app billing, which is my favorite, or you can do subscription-based or in-app advertisement. We support all the usual Android mechanisms, Google checkout-based payments, or Android advertisement. All right. Finally, question and answers. I'll put up this slide. Go find us, Stack Overflow, for technical questions. So our team actually monitors it. If you have a technical question, we'll answer it. We have Google Groups where we announce periodic stuff that's going on with our developer program. The other thing I want to highlight is on Google+, we have weekly Hangouts every Wednesday, 1 o'clock Pacific time. Come stop by, ask your questions. We're looking forward to see you. So with that, any questions? Yes, in the back.
How do I know if a TV supports Google TV? Is there a label on the box? Or?
How do you know if a TV supports Google TV? Usually there is a label on the box. So Google TV right now, as of today, it runs on Sony TVs, or some of the Sony TVs, and there's a label on it. It also runs on some of the Sony Blu-ray players or the LG players. Going forward, there's a lot of companies out on the show floor who have just announced their support. There will be televisions integrated with it, or there will be set-top boxes. One more? We're working on it. So the question was, when is it available outside the United States? We're basically working, rolling it out internationally, actively this year. So stay tuned, there will be more news. One more? Okay, can we do a live TV feed and overlay or have user information or programmatic information around it? Right now, the answer is no. This is another very frequent request, and we're looking at it. There is some developers who have experimented with it. We're trying to find a way that is generic enough that we can open it up to all developers, so we don't have official APIs for that yet.
Sorry, we're about out of time. Maybe we can
Yeah.
afterwards. Thank you very much.
So I'll be around for the break too. Thank you.